The house stood silent at the end of the street, its windows like dark eyes watching the world pass by. Michael stepped out of his car, looking up at the old Victorian house that had belonged to his grandmother, Evelyn. He hadn't been inside since he was a child, when it was filled with the smell of freshly baked cookies and the sound of her humming. Now, it felt different, empty, and unfamiliar. He sighed, jingling the keys in his hand. The lawyer had handed them over with a sympathetic smile, explaining that the house was his now, part of his grandmother's will. Michael hadn't expected it. They hadn't been particularly close. After his parents' messy divorce, he drifted away from family, focusing on his own life, far removed from the past. The front door creaked open as he pushed it open, stepping into a dusty hallway. Sunlight streamed through the stained glass windows, casting colorful patterns on the floor. The house looked frozen in time, faded wallpaper, old furniture draped with white sheets, the air thick with scent of cedar and age. He wandered through the rooms, running his fingers along the mantelpiece, picking up small trinkets and framed photos. Each object felt like a relic of a life he barely knew. His grandmother's life had always been a mystery to him, a series of vague stories that his mother had told him during the holidays. As he made his way upstairs, he noticed a door at the end of the hallway. It was different from the others, solid oak, its handle tarnished with age. He jiggled the doorknob, but it didn't budge. Locked. Michael frowned. He didn't remember this room at all. He glanced at the set of keys in his hand, trying several of them, but none of them fit. He knelt down, peering through the keyhole, but it was dark inside, as if the room itself was holding its breath. Curiosity gnawed at him, but he shrugged it off. He had a whole house to sort through, decades of belongings to sift and pack away. He moved on, telling himself the locked room could wait. But as he started boxing up books and clothing, he couldn't stop thinking about it. Why had his grandmother kept one room locked away for all these years? What was she hiding? By the end of the day, Michael was exhausted, but the locked door still loomed large in his mind. He decided to take a break, collapsing into an old armchair in the living room. He closed his eyes, feeling the weight of the house settle around him like a heavy blanket. For the first time in a long while, he wondered if he had been wrong to distance himself from his family's history. Maybe there's more to his grandmother than he realized. Maybe the locked room held answers he hadn't thought to look for before. He drifted off to sleep with the image of the locked door burning in his mind, a silent invitation to uncover the secrets it held. Michael woke up to the sound of rain tapping against the windows. The sky outside was dark and gray, the perfect backdrop for a day of sorting through dusty memories. He pulled himself out of the armchair, stretching his sore muscles, and decided to start in his grandmother's bedroom. If there was a key to the locked room, it would likely be there. He hesitated before opening the diary. It felt invasive, but his curiosity got the better of him. The first entry was dated decades ago, the handwriting neat and precise. July 3rd, 1960. I received my first set of paints today. I've never felt more alive. The colors are my escape, my joy. The bedroom was neat, everything in its place, as if she had tidied it one last time before leaving. He opened her wardrobe, pulling out the old scarves and dresses, each one carrying the faint scent of lavender. On the top shelf, he found a small wooden box, its lid engraved with delicate flowers. Inside, he found a bundle of letters tied with a faded ribbon and an old, leather-bound diary. Michael's heart ached at the words. He had never known this side of his grandmother, a young woman full of passion and dreams. He flipped through the pages, reading snippets of her life. She wrote about the small studio she'd set up in the house, her excitement over the latest paintings, and then gradually the entries became shorter, tinged with sadness. December 10th, 1975, I had to pack away the brushes today. The children need me. There's no time for painting now. He stopped, his fingers resting on the page. The realization hit him like a wave. His grandmother had given up her heart, her dream to care for her family. She had put away her passion, trading it for responsibility, sacrificing her own desires without complaint. The final entry he read was from years later, May 4th, 1990. I locked the studio door today. It's time to let it go. But sometimes, I still dream of the colors. Michael's hands trembled as he closed the diary. He looked up, his eyes drawn to the locked door down the hall. The studio wasn't just a room. It was the heart of her unfulfilled dreams, a place she had shut away when life demanded more of her than she could give. He knew now what he had to do. He returned to the wooden box, searching through the letters until he found a small, ornate key tucked into the corner. It was old, but it looked like it might fit the lock. With a deep breath, he made his way down the hall, the key clutched tightly in his hand. He wasn't just unlocking a door, he was unlocking a piece of his family's history, A piece of himself he hadn't known was missing. The key slid into the lock with a soft click, and the door creaked open. The door creaked as Michael pushed it open, revealing a room frozen in time. Dust motes danced in the silvers of sunlight filtering through the small, curtained windows. He stepped inside, his breath catching as he took in the sight before him. The walls were lined with canvases, some completed, others just rough sketches. The smell of aged paint and linseed oil filled the air, a scent that carried the ghosts of his grandmother's creativity. An easel stood at the center of the room, draped with an old cloth and a palette, still smeared with dried paint, resting on a small table beside it. Michael carefully lifted the cloth, revealing a half-finished painting of a vibrant meadow. The colors were bold, the brushstrokes confident, capturing a scene full of life. He could almost see his grandmother standing there, mixing her colors, her hands stained with paint as she brought her vision to life. It was a side of her he had never known, a woman driven by passion, by the desire to create something beautiful. He walked slowly around the room, touching the edge of a canvas, running his fingers over the sketchbooks piled on a dusty shelf. They were filled with the detailed drawings, portraits, landscapes, abstract shapes. Each one was a piece of her, a glimpse into her world. He found himself smiling through tears he hadn't realized were falling. As he flipped through one of the sketchbooks, a loose page fell out and fluttered to the floor. He picked it up, unfolding it carefully. It was a letter, written in his grandmother's elegant handwriting. "To my dearest Michael," it began. His hand shook as he read. "If you're reading this, it means that you found my studio. I never meant for it to be hidden forever, only until the time was right. I gave up my dream for my family, but I never regretted it. My art was a part of me, but so were you. I saw something special in you, even as a boy. You have a gift, Michael, even if you haven't realized it yet. Don't make the same mistakes I did. Don't let life take your passions away. Follow your dreams, no matter how difficult it may seem." Michael sank to the floor, the letter clutched to his chest. He could feel the weight of her words, the love that she had poured into every line. She hadn't locked the room away out of regret. She had done it to protect a part of herself she wasn't ready to let go of. And so, she had passed the choice onto him. He looked around the studio, seeing it not as a place of lost dreams, but as a legacy. It wasn't too late. He could still choose to create, to pursue the things he had pushed aside for practicality. Wiping his eyes, he stood up, taking one last look at the unfinished painting. He made a silent promise to his grandmother to honor her by picking up where she had left off. Michael spent the next few days in a haze, sorting through the studio, uncovering more of his grandmother's artwork and notes. Each discovery felt like a conversation with her, a chance to connect across time. He found old photographs, some of her standing proudly in front of her paintings, others of his mother as a child sitting at the edge of the easel, watching her work. He couldn't stop thinking about the letter. Her words echoed in his mind every time he found another sketch or painting. Don't let life take your passion away. It was as if she had seen right through him, even after all these years, recognizing the dreams he had buried deep under the weight of responsibility and fear. Michael had always loved music. He played the piano as a child, filling the house with melodies until his parents' fights drowned out the sound. He had stopped playing after the divorce, convinced it was a childish pursuit. He chose a stable career instead, something that paid the bills but never made his heart sing. Sitting at his grandmother's desk, he realized how wrong he had been. He saw now that the locked room wasn't just a symbol of her unfulfilled dreams. It was a reminder of the sacrifices she had made. She had given up her art to help raise him, to give him a chance at a better life. It was time to repay that gift by living fully, by daring to pursue what he truly loved. With renewed purpose, Michael took a canvas from the wall, setting it on the easel. He hesitated, then dipped the brush into the ancient palette, mixing the colors just as he imagined she might have done. He began to paint, the strokes awkward at first, but gaining confidence with each movement. The hours flew by as he lost himself in the flow of creation. He could almost feel her presence beside him, guiding his hand, whispering encouragement. He painted the meadow from her unfinished work, adding his own touches, a bright sky, vibrant flowers swaying in the breeze. It was a collaboration between past and present, between his grandmother's dreams and his own. When he finally stepped back, the sun was setting, casting a warm glow over the finished piece. He looked at it, feeling a sense of completion, of connection. He had found a part of himself he had thought he lost, and in doing so, he had honored her memory. He hung the painting on the wall, right above her favorite sketch of the rolling hills outside of Florence. It was a tribute, a message. I hear you. I will not waste this gift. Michael left the studio that night with a lighter heart, carrying the scent of paint and the echoes of her promise fulfilled. A month had passed since Michael first unlocked the studio, but the transformation was palpable. The house, once filled with the silence of forgotten memories, now hummed with life. He had moved his belongings into the old bedroom, making the house his own. But the biggest change was the studio. He had decided to keep it as it was, a shrine to his grandmother's talent, but he also began using it himself. The once locked room became a sanctuary, a place where he could explore his music and painting without judgment. He dusted off an old piano stored in the attic, setting it up on the corner of the studio. Every evening he played, the notes filling the house with melodies that seemed to blend with the light streaming through the windows. One evening, as he sat at the piano, he felt a deep sense of peace. He had found something he hadn't realized he was missing: purpose, passion, and a connection to his roots. His fingers danced over the keys, playing a tune he remembered from childhood, a lullaby his grandmother used to hum. The door creaked open and his mother stepped inside, tears glistening in her eyes. "I thought I'd never hear you play that again," she said softly. Michael smiled, patting the seat beside him. "I think it's what you would have wanted," he replied. They sat together, the music wrapping around them like a warm embrace. It was as if his grandmother was there, her spirit alive in the music, in the strokes of paint on the canvas, in the very walls of the house. When the last note faded, Michael turned to his mother. "I want to stay here," he said. "I want to keep the studio open, keep her memory alive, and I want to start creating again. Music, art, whatever comes." It's what she would have wanted, for the both of us. His mother nodded, tears streaming down her face. "She would be so proud of you," she whispered. "And I am too." Michael took a deep breath, feeling the weight of his decision to settle into something solid, something right. He looked around the room, seeing not just his grandmother's dreams, but his own future. He had unlocked more than just a door. He had unlocked a legacy, a path forward filled with the promise of new beginnings.